Good evening. I call to order the meeting of the Salem Housing Authority for the City of Salem for Monday, April 10th, 2023. Would the recorder please call the roll?
Commissioner Nishioka?
Present.
Vice Chair Phillips?
Here.
Commissioner Gwynn?
Here.
Commissioner Gonzalez?
Here.
Commissioner Hoy?
Here.
Commissioner Nordike?
Here.
Commissioner Varney?
Here.
Resident Commissioner Villegas? Chair Stapleton?
I'm here. Thank you. Would you all join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please? Thank you. Vice Chair Phillips, do we have any additions or deletions tonight?
Not tonight.
Thank you. We have no public comment, so Co-Chair, the consent calendar.
I move the consent calendar, which consists of 3.1A, the March 27, 2023 Salem Housing Authority draft minutes, and 3.3A under resolutions, which is to extend the agreement of the Salem Housing Authority to serve as the general manager of the Salem Manor Apartments, Hampstead Salem Manor Limited Partnership. And that concludes the consent.
Thank you. Seconded by Commissioner Nordike. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, would the recorder please call the roll?
Commissioner Nishioka?
Aye.
Vice Chair Phillips?
Aye.
Commissioner Gwynn?
Aye.
Commissioner Gonzalez?
Aye.
Commissioner Hoy?
Aye.
Commissioner Nordike?
Aye.
Commissioner Varney?
Aye.
Resident Commissioner Villegas is absent. Chair Stapleton?
Aye. Motion passes. We have no public hearings, no special orders of business, no information reports. So with that, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Good evening. I'll call this meeting of the Urban Renewal Agency for the City of Salem for Monday, April 10th to order. Let's call roll.
Board Member Stapleton?
I'm here.
Board Member Nishioka?
Present.
Board Member Phillips?
Here.
Board Member Gwynn?
Here.
Board Member Gonzalez?
Here.
Board Member Hoy?
Here.
Board Member Nordike?
Here.
Board Member Varney?
Here.
Chair Hoy?
Here. Councilor Stapleton, the consent calendar.
I move approval of the consent calendar.
Second.
Thank you. Consent calendar consists of just a couple of things tonight. We have item 3.1A, the March 13th, 2023 draft urban renewal agency minutes. Item 3.2A, the minor amendments to the Fairview Urban Renewal Area Plan to modify the area boundary and project list. And item 3.3A, which is the purchase and sale agreement with Salem LTC Properties LLC for the purchase of an unimproved real property located at 295 Commercial Street Southeast. And that concludes the consent calendar.
Thank you, Councilor. And for the record, we have no additions or deletions and nobody signed up for public comment. I kind of breezed right past that. That was my mistake. Thank you. Any discussion? If the recorder will please call the roll.
Board Member Gonzalez?
Aye.
Board Member Hoy?
Aye.
Board Member Nordike?
Aye.
Board Member Varney?
Aye.
Board Member Stapleton?
Aye.
Board Member Nishioka?
Aye.
Board Member Phillips?
Aye.
Board Member Gwynn?
Aye.
Chair Hoy?
Aye. Motion passes. And let's see, we have no public hearings, no special orders of business, but we do have an information report. Ms. Rutherford, did you have any comments for us on that?
Sorry, I do not. These are our standard purchases that we're bringing forward.
Thank you. Any comments from board members? All right. Well, this to back up just for 1 second to the consent calendar, this purchase and sale agreement is really, really exciting, and I'm so happy that that worked out. Looking forward to getting that property back on the market and to make it a really productive part of downtown.
Thank you. And just so that everybody is aware, this is the property that was planned for development by Marquis as a post-acute rehab facility. That project, after a number of years of being on hold, was not financially feasible. So they put the property on the market and we were able to purchase it.
The one just right over here. Yeah. Any questions or comments? Councillor Stapleton.
Just that Nordike has her hand raised.
Oh, gosh, I didn't see her. Thank you. Councillor Nordike.
No worries. Thank you so much. Good evening, Director Rutherford. I actually had a question about a different project within our urban renewal area. The former UGM and Saffron Supply Co. project. Can you just give us an update where we are at? I know that when folks are whizzing by, they're probably wondering what's going to happen with this gigantic project that's been raised to the ground. Could you share a little bit with us where we are with that?
Absolutely. I'm happy to. So this is the almost the entire block where the Union Gospel Mission was. We have for several months been compiling names of prospective purchasers, and we are putting together right now the criteria for the procurement process. It's actually not a procurement process, but it would normally be sort of an RFP process. We're approaching a little bit differently for this property. We're going to start with letters of interest and obtain responses from prospective developers who may be interested in acquiring this property. So we have been formulating the criteria. So the first screening criteria will be looking at all of these letters of interest and evaluating those to see who meet the initial set of criteria for development, such as doing comparable projects. And then we will, over the course of the next several months, work through a funnel process where we then begin to ask for additional information until we get down to kind of the top two proposals for that site. Is there,
thank you. I do have a follow-up question, if I may, Mr. Mayor.
Certainly.
Can you tell me, generally speaking, what is your vision for this area? Are we looking at mixed use? Are we looking at affordable housing? I know that you're in the process of developing these criteria, but I still think it would be helpful to know what kinds of projects might we see come about once we complete this process?
So there will be an affordability requirement that is to be distributed throughout the site. So we're not looking, for example, at a standalone affordable apartment building, but for whatever housing is developed on the site, the affordability would be mixed in. We're looking at a 15% of the units as the criteria. We are looking at mixed use. That's appropriate with our downtown zoning. We are going to look at having some amount of public space on the property. Could be a built-in courtyard, it could be alley improvements. But beyond that, we are keeping our criteria very high level and trying not to be too burdensome so that we can, so that developers can kind of respond to what the market is telling them is needed in the community.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? All right, we are adjourned. And with that, I will call to order the meeting for the Salem City Council for Monday, April 10th, 2023 to order. If the recorder will please call the roll.
Councillor Stapleton.
Here.
Councillor Nishioka.
Present.
Councillor Phillips.
Here.
Councillor Gwen.
Here.
Councillor Gonzalez.
Here.
Councillor Hoy.
Here.
Councillor Nordike.
Here.
Councillor Barney.
Here.
Mayor Hoy.
Here. Thank you. Councillor Stapleton, do we have any additions or deletions to the agenda?
Not tonight.
Thank you. And it is time for council and city manager comments. Do we have any? Councillor Hoy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Much has happened since our last council meeting. I continue the quest to clean up the world around me. Carts and trash, and people. So many people suffering. I count myself among them now because I'm tired. My heart breaks for every person who continues to not receive our best. The camper not far from my front door of my home was removed last week. I don't know by whom. 2 very large piles of black trash bags, a shopping cart, an inside door panel, and a 5-gallon bucket with a bright red biohazard sticker on the side were left behind. The next day, the van had been moved a few feet forward onto county property now. They seem to know where they are and just how far to move across jurisdictions. Maybe these campers are doing the best they can. It is possible. But why are they here? Why are there so many? What is it about Salem? Tolerance? A lack of expectation and accountabilities? I have my guesses, but what does it matter? When I grew up, doing drugs in public was unthinkable. Even to litter was a crime. Vehicle registration and licensing was required. Oh, sure, some of these things are assumptions on my part, but I know what I see. I see the big RV parked without permission behind my business last night, filled to the brim, no plates, front or back. As I headed for home out the front door, I came upon the addicted person out front. There were only 2 possibilities for his need, for foil, flame, and a glass pipe: heroin or meth. My husband asked the man, "Why do you do this to yourself?" No answer was given. I was at an event earlier today. A local business, feeling that business is good right now, said this: "Fortunately for us, Portland's trouble is our gain." We'd better move faster and work harder to address the issues that are impacting the majority of the population and small business here in Salem. I am tired, frustrated, and sad, but I refuse to let darkness overtake me. While I search for answers and wait for miracles, I will continue the small efforts I'm making to make Salem a better place, one piece of trash, one shopping cart, one person at a time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Nordyke.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, one and all. I hope you all had a lovely weekend. I just want to offer a few quick remarks this evening. First of all, for those of you who may not know, we have an election this May, and I encourage everyone to make their voices heard. Make sure you go to the Secretary of State's website and ensure that you are registered to vote. These elections are very important, and I encourage everyone to make sure that your voter registration information is up to date. Next, on our agenda tonight, we'll be talking about the lifting of parking mandates. And I just want to say, as I've spoken to neighborhood groups about this topic, I know that a number of our residents are upset at the fact that parking mandates are being lifted. And I just want to remind folks that in our public materials tonight, which are accessible to all, you can find out some really handy dandy information that reminds you, and it's called Parking Reform Overview. It's in the materials that these are statewide changes that are going to impact 48 Oregon cities, ours included. And there's a great summary that explains why these parking mandates are being lifted and how cities like ours can amend their codes to meet statewide requirements. So I just want to make sure that sometimes as a city, we are the messenger. Sometimes we are the ones who have to enact statewide changes. So I encourage you folks to listen carefully to the testimony that you may have, that may come before us tonight, to read the testimony that is in your materials, but also to take a look at the parking reform summary and overview that's being provided by the Oregon Department of Land Conservation and Development as just one of the pieces of information that'll be helpful along those lines. Also, I want to call out a specific testimony, piece of written testimony that I saw about this subject, about EV stations. When people think of the lifting of parking mandates, they might not think of how this could impact electric vehicle charging stations, but according to this testimony from Black & Veatch, it does. From their testimony, it says that, quote, minimum parking count standards are a major obstacle for the construction of electric vehicle charging stations. EV adoption is heavily dependent upon the charging infrastructure being accessible and convenient. The most efficient and climate-friendly way to provide this network is to use existing commercial parking lots. Commercial property owners are interested in installing electric vehicle charging stations as a benefit to their customers. When code requires parking minimums, EVCS installations are forced into existing landscaping areas or to less convenient sites. Also, burdensome zoning code requirements and process discourage private property owners from installing these charging stations. End quote. So, folks, I just want to make sure that you're aware of that. Please take a look at the information that is in your agenda tonight, because when it comes to statewide parking changes, we have to look carefully at what the state is requiring our city and cities around the state to do. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilor, and thank you for the reminder on the parking minimums. I would also just add to that whatever we do tonight, we will not be impacting downtown, because those rules already apply downtown, and they have for a number of decades. So that's something that I think has been missed on a lot of folks, that this, no matter which way we vote tonight, downtown won't be impacted, because that's already the case. Those rules are already in on the books. So, other comments? Councilor Nishioka. Councilor Stapleton raised her hand for you and pointed at you. So if you're really not interested, that's fine.
I was just wanting to mention that a few of us, a couple other councilors and the mayor, attended the First Citizens Award event on Saturday. It was a lovely event, and I am just overwhelmed with all of the things all of the people do for our city, and I wanted to make note of that.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Stapleton.
Thank you so much. I wanted to highlight the Yaquina Hall opening that we all went to. Everything is happening so fast, it's really hard to come to a council meeting and try and remember all the things that you've been doing. And so wanted to highlight that. That was a really wonderful time. Thank you to staff for pulling that together. I really enjoyed taking the tour and just being with all the people there that really helped pull that together over the years. It has been so much work before I got here, and so I really want to just highlight that although we are counselors that are finishing the job, we definitely were not the ones to start it. So thank you to previous councils who did the work of getting that started, and to staff who have seen it through the whole time. I also wanted to highlight item 3.3A on the agenda tonight, which is the grant application for the Willamette wildlife mitigation. This is a really great opportunity that we have to hopefully acquire some land to the north of Wallace Marine Park and do some restoration work. And that really, I know for both counselors for West Salem, that is really near and dear to our heart, to restore what has been damaged in our environment and get it back to a place where wildlife can thrive there. And so I'm really excited about this work that's coming up. And then lastly, I need to publicly apologize to Councilor Hoy. At our work session that we had, I think that was last week too. Everything happened last week. Councilor Hoy made a really good point, and I laughed. And I'm a firm believer in apologizing for things. If it's in the public sphere, then I need to publicly apologize. So I know that you would have taken a phone call from me and apologized that way, but I wanted to do it here. It was not professional of me to laugh at what you said, and what you said was important. And the reason I laughed was that I had the same thought. I struggle with the fact that we have big chunks of our city that are unincorporated. And that was something that I had to really work through the first year that I was a counselor too, just kind of feeling like it wasn't fair that all these folks were really benefiting from everything that we do here in the city, but not paying the same taxes and not understanding why we couldn't annex them in or why maybe we wouldn't want to. So at any rate, I just wanted to say that I apologize for my carelessness and that I really value what you bring and the questions that you bring, and I don't ever want to be careless. So I hope you'll forgive me.
Done. Yeah, thank you, Councilor Stapleton, and I'm with you. We're here to work together and to lift each other up, to make things better for everyone, and I appreciate you acknowledging that. And there's a lot going on here. There's a lot to this responsibility. So thank you so much.
Thank you, councilors. I would just like to highlight a couple of things as well. Thank you to all of my colleagues who have, for the words they've spoken so far. I wanted to mention two things that I think just really highlight the richness of our community that I had the opportunity to participate in. But these are things sometimes that when you're the mayor, you get to do really fun stuff. And this last several days, I've had the opportunity to do a couple of really fun things. And one was last Saturday, so a week ago this last Saturday, I participated in the Qingming Festival at the Pioneer Cemetery, which was really an amazing event despite the torrential downpour. There were, 100 to 150 people there honoring the Chinese immigrants who are buried there and who really are foundational to our city's founding and to what we have today. And it was live streamed to their ancestors and to their descendants in China. And it was really a great event, and I felt very honored to be able to be there and represent you all at that event. The other one, I was invited out to South Salem to Temple Beth Shalom earlier this week. Now, I guess it would have been last week. So hard to keep track. For Passover Seder. And that was a really wonderful experience. I'd never had experienced that before, and I was really, it was just a great opportunity. I definitely encourage you to do so if you ever have the opportunity. Rabbi Eli is an amazing host, and I really am better for having been able to participate in that. So anyway, I just wanted to highlight those two things. And I know the city manager has some comments.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to point out the great work that we're doing here this evening. Councilor Stapleton already has mentioned the 400 acres that we're putting a grant application in. Someday, if we're successful with that, people will look back and say, wow, what an incredible acquisition and addition to our community. So first step was taken here this evening, and I'm just proud to be part of that. Rob and his team put the application together in literally, a matter of weeks, and hopefully we will be successful in that. I also wanted to point out that we are approving this evening a air carrier operating agreement and other legal documents related to bringing air service to our community. And again, that is another momentous step forward for our community that also involves some incredible staff work. They're sitting over there in the back row. John and Mark and Brian and their team really did outstanding work in bringing this to us this evening. There was a tremendous amount of back and forth and technical work involved. We're not done. We will not be done until the plane touches down here and takes off. But again, that would not happen without what we're doing this evening. And then lastly, I'd just like to recognize Director Rutherford for her work in regards to 295 commercial and the important step forward for our community and our downtown. I agree with Mayor and Council that that is a significant step forward for us. And again, I think it's one of those things that we're going to look back and say, wow, that was another momentous thing that we did this evening. So three things. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Staley, for highlighting those. That property, both of those property acquisitions are going to be transformational, one for downtown and one for the whole city, for sure. So they're really exciting. All right. With that, unless there are other councilor comments that I didn't see, okay. Now we are on to proclamations, and I have Deputy Chief Scott Lavelle and Lisa Breitbach, the PCA Union President, here to honor public safety telecommunicators. Come on down. Welcome, thanks for being here. Good to see you. All right. Whereas public safety telecommunicators are the first and most critical contact our residents have with emergency services, and whereas emergencies can occur at any time that require police, fire, or emergency medical services, and whereas when an emergency occurs, the prompt response of police officers, firefighters, and paramedics is critical to the protection of life and preservation of property, and whereas the safety of our police officers and firefighters is dependent on the quality and accuracy of information obtained from residents who telephone the Willamette Valley Communications Center, and whereas public safety telecommunicators are the single vital link for our police officers and firefighters by monitoring their activities by radio, providing them information, and ensuring their safety, and whereas public safety telecommunicators of the Willamette Valley Communications Center have contributed substantially to the apprehension of criminals, suppression of fires, and treatment of patients. And whereas each dispatcher has exhibited compassion, understanding, and professionalism during the performance of their job. And now, therefore, I, Chris Hoy, Mayor of the City of Salem, Oregon, do hereby proclaim April 9th through 15th, 2023 as National Public Safety Telecommunications Week in honor of the employees of the Willamette Valley Communications Center whose diligence and professionalism keep our city and residents safe. Dated this 10th day of April, 2023. Thank you.
I just want to say thank you. We really appreciate it. We're not out in the public people, so we appreciate the recognition, and it's a really fun week for us to just kind of celebrate all the things that we do and have a little bit of fun.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much for all the work you do. You're the first responders, and you really are responsible for so many people's safety. We really appreciate it. Thank you. All right, now we are on to public comment, and we have 2 folks signed up. As a reminder, you have 3 minutes. If you step up to the microphone, be sure and hit the button to turn the microphone on, please. State your name and your address or your ward for the record. And first up is George Huntmacher. Thank you.
Hi, my name is George Huntmacher. I live at
If you could let go of the microphone, it really interrupts.
Riverhaven Drive South.
Mr. Huntmacher, if you could let go of the microphone, it really makes a lot of noise when you hold on to it. Thank you so much.
Is that better?
Yeah, just step closer to it, but don't touch it.
I'm here to say a few words.
Sorry about that.
I'm here to say a few words about the incoming airline.
Okay.
I spent 51 years at Salem Airport. Gave me a chance to see what was going on in this world.
Yeah.
I worked for United Airlines for 18 years, and I ran my own business, hot shuttle, between Salem and Portland Airport for 33 years. And what I can't understand is every airline that's ever tried to come in here never had frequency. Delta was the only one that lasted 6 months out of its full-year contract, as I remember it. I read in the paper that they said they will produce or operate 2 flights a week. Is that right? That's what the article said. Now, that might have been a misprint. That's not very much for the amount of money you're paying them. Nobody paid me any money to start HUT or run it, but it turned into a tremendous business. There are 2 things you gotta have with an airline. Frequency. Nothing will beat frequency. We operated every 2 hours, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. I canceled 1 trip in 33 years. And that was because the Portland airport was closed, the freeway was closed, everything was closed down. That meant dependability and frequency. What I don't understand is why you want to pay so much money and you're not going to get what you're paying for. I rest my case.
Thank you. Mark Wigg.
Yes. Okay, Mark Wigg, 1950 Saginaw Street South, and I thank all of you folks for being here. I had 2 things, actually, and hopefully I'll get 6 minutes. But the first one is...
No, you just get 3, Mark.
2 different items. Okay, well, then I'll speak really fast. The first one is the 3A for the acquisition of the property. One of the things you have to understand is that Willamette Valley Mitigation Program, the public won't be allowed access to that land. Yes, look at what happened at Minto Brown on the Boise land. The public has a trail, but we can't get off the trail. That is part of the rules for that. Look into it. The other thing is, what are the requirements for Dogami on finishing up the restoration of that site? Do you know what those are? The other thing that we're not aware of is the liability. Are you familiar with avulsion? What happens, it happened in Eugene, gravel pit, the bottom of the gravel pit is much lower than the bottom of the Willamette River. If there's a break in that dike, the river goes into the gravel pit, and you are responsible for it. That's a huge liability. We aren't going to get any property taxes off that, and we aren't going to have public access, except for that one little piece of parkland. So look into getting park funding, not mitigation funding for that. Parks has money for parkland. Next one is on the airport. We're given a 25% discount for the fuel tax forever. Not 2 years, forever. The other one we're giving away is we're going to guarantee $25,000 for these people to fly to LA. We don't know the size of the plane. It could be a two-seater. They get $25,000. The other thing that we don't know is they are not obligated to have any flights. After they start, they can reduce it to 0. And then, so we don't know the size of the plane. And also, most airports are funded by passenger facility charges. We aren't charging anything. We are way too desperate for these people. But if we're going to make that good of a deal, don't have it for one airline. Open it up, let other airlines bid on it. It's guaranteed profits.
Thank you, Mark. All right, Councilor Stapleton, the consent calendar.
Thank you. I move approval of the consent calendar.
I'll second.
Thank you. The items tonight are item 3.1A, the March 27th, 2023 draft council minutes. Item 3.3A, the grant application to the Willamette Wildlife Mitigation Program for acquisition and conservation of property north of the Willamette, Wallace Marine Park. Item 3.3B, air carrier operating agreement, revenue guarantee agreement, and local matching funds agreement. Item 3.3C, the recommended appointments to the Citizens Budget Committee, the Citizens Advisory Traffic Commission, and the Salem Public Art Commission. And that concludes the consent calendar.
Thank you. Is there any discussion?
Yes.
Councilor Nordyke.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. I had a question regarding the air carrier agreement. My residents are concerned with transparency in the process of creating or signing off on an air carrier agreement. And I noticed that the name of the air carrier or airline has been kept confidential. I've received some information from staff as to why that information is kept confidential, but I would like to hear from staff if they could explain for the public this evening why that information is redacted at this time.
Thank you, Councilor. Who would you like to respond? Mr. Atchison, hit your button, please. Thank you.
Dan Atchison, City Attorney. The city has executed a non-disclosure agreement with the airline, and they're not ready at this moment to release their name. And I think Public Works staff may be able to provide more information on that.
City Attorney, can you tell us, generally speaking, what is an NDA for folks who may not know what that is?
It's an agreement where we agree not to disclose their confidential information, including their name.
So just for the public's information, there are certain individuals within the city of Salem who do know the name of the carrier, and we do know that they will not be two-seat passenger planes. We know that they will be large aircraft. Just for the record, I know that was a question that came up during the public comment. So these are large aircraft. So, any other questions or discussion? If the recorder will please. Almost missed you, Councilor. Councilor Nordyke.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate it. I know appearing online can create an obstacle. The only other thing I wanted to say was just to echo what Councilor Stapleton was saying earlier about the grant application for the Willamette Wildlife Mitigation Program. I'm so excited that the seller is interested in being a seller with us. And I know a grant application is just an application, but as Councilor Stapleton and the city manager pointed out, this has the potential to be a true legacy for Salem. This could generate so many good things could come from this. So I appreciate the fact that when opportunities like this happen, our city staff are ready to respond and look for the grant opportunities to make it happen. So I'm grateful to the staff for pouncing on this opportunity, and I am having my fingers crossed that we are successful in our grant. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. And they really did do amazingly quick work to get this application prepared and ready for us tonight. It's a very, very, very short timeline, so they did some really great work. Councilor Hoy.
Just to clear it up, back to air service, I had heard a number of passengers with regard to flights. Is that a thing? Does anybody know what that is?
Like the size of the aircraft?
Yeah.
Yes, we do know.
Can we say
I think we can say
loud?
that. Can we say that?
Dan Atchison, City Attorney. John Pascal might be able to answer that better. I believe there's some concern about releasing the aircraft type because that would probably identify the name of the airline,
Oh,
but we
okay.
could probably tell you the number of passengers.
It's more than 100.
Okay.
I can tell you that.
Thank you for that.
Yeah. And I just also for council's knowledge, I have spoken personally with the CEO of the undisclosed airline, and I'm very comfortable with the situation. So, any other discussion? If the recorder will please call the roll.
Counselor Gonzalez.
Aye.
Counselor Hoy.
Aye.
Counselor Nordyke.
Aye.
Counselor Varney.
Aye.
Counselor Stapleton.
Aye.
Counselor Nishioka.
Aye.
Counselor Phillips.
Aye.
Counselor Gwynn.
Aye.
Mayor Hoy.
Aye. Motion passes. On to public hearings. Item 4A.
The Salem City Council will now conduct a public hearing concerning the 2023 Annual Action Plan for Community Development Block Grant and Home Investment Partnership Program funds. The hearing will begin with the staff presentation, and if there's any individuals here to testify, they're limited to 3 minutes. Please state your name and address or ward number for the record. Thank you.
Thank you. And I see that we have Tiffany Otis here with us this evening to walk us through the hearing.
Good evening, City Council and Mayor. My name is Tiffany Otis, and I'm with Federal Programs Manager for Urban Development Department. The purpose of tonight's public hearing is to provide an opportunity for the public to hear and comment on the proposed 2023 Community Development Block Grant and Home Investment Partnership Annual Action Plan. The annual plan addresses the funding goals and priorities identified in the 2020-2024 Consolidated Plan, which includes the Salem Strategic Plan, goals of addressing affordable housing, homelessness, and social services. The Annual Action Plan is an implementation of goals identified in the 2020-2024 Consolidated Plan. Annual Action Plan outreach consisted of contact with various social service organizations, attendance at multicultural array of community meetings, published notices, website announcements, and a notice on the city's Facebook page. The annual plan is formed with consideration to other community-driven initiatives in addressing affordable housing, economic development, and supportive services for low-income and at-risk populations. For example, a priority in the council-approved strategic plan includes a community desire to increase affordable housing options, improve coordination of social services, and reduce the number of hardest-to-house chronically homeless in the community. Or like the City of Salem's multifamily housing design process, which included public input to help meet Salem's housing needs by removing barriers to multifamily housing development and ensure new development is compatible with neighborhoods. The continuum of care guides the use of the McKinney-Vento federal funding for emergency and transitional housing with supportive services. Currently, the city has a 5-year consolidated plan, which outlines the city's priorities and goals. This is year 4 of the consolidated plan, and these are the identified priorities seen on the slide. The AAP funding cycle began in early fall with staff conducting informational outreach to our city's for-profit and nonprofit entities. In October, a notice was published in the Statesman Journal, minority publications, and a press release was issued. The public announcement was posted on the city's website, at the Salem Public Library, and distributed at various meetings such as the Emergency Housing Network, Salem Kaiser Collaborative, and the Continuum of Care. In December, after the application period closed on November 30th, staff reviewed the proposals to determine if the proposed activities were eligible based upon the federal funding guidelines. Applications were then forwarded to a panelist group comprised of Salem citizens for review and scoring. Staff then ranked the applications based upon the total scores. Funding recommendations are based on those rankings and the administrative scores. Recommendations are outlined in the draft annual plan, which was publicly noticed and transmitted to community partners. The City of Salem is a participating jurisdiction grantee of HUD funds and must address housing needs and priorities consistent to the consolidated plan outline. The award amounts are formula-based mathematics. Community Development Block Grant, or CDBG, HUD awards 70% of formula funds to the entitlement jurisdictions. Those are cities with populations over 50,000 and counties with populations over 200,000. The balance of those funds goes to the state for allocation to less populous towns and counties. Home Investment Partnership Program, or HOME, is a block grant provided by HUD directly to large cities like Salem. The HOME formula is based on a range of factors, including the inadequacy of housing supply, the incidence of poverty, and fiscal distress. HUD uses formulas to determine each entitlement jurisdiction's allocation, both of which are weighted to account for the share of the population in poverty. These are the 2023 allocation amounts. The proposed projects for 2023 will provide various types of assistance to approximately 3,000 individuals and families within Salem. These projects are designed to assist low to moderate citizens with economic, social, and housing needs. The city will contract with applicants once the Department of Housing and Urban Development submit federal funding agreements and they are duly executed by our city manager. Federal regulations also require the city to conduct an environmental review of each activity to determine whether a project may have an impact on the environment. The federal funding available to award includes annual entitlement, program income from loans previously funded, project cost savings, and unallocated resource from previous years. The total available resources are used to fund programs, projects, and administrative expenses. Administrative expenses are capped at 10% for the home entitlement, program and income, and at 20% for CDBG entitlement and program income. Grant subrecipients are also required to provide a 25% match to leverage the federal funds. The CDBG, there were 10 applications and 4 were qualified for funding. The CDBG proposed projects recommended for funding fall into the priority areas of addressing homelessness. These activities include case management services for St. Francis Shelter and Women at the Well Grace House, food services for seniors via Marion Polk Food Share, and the City of Salem land acquisition and homeless activities that meet the CON Plan objectives. Home. There were 7 applications and 3 were qualified for funding. The home proposed projects recommended for funding into the priority area of expanding affordable housing. These activities include Dev Northwest for down payment assistance for the McClay project of approximately 24 single-family residences, homes, and townhomes. The Dev Northwest operating as the CHOTO for the City of Salem for operating funds. And Applegate Landing, LLC, for Applegate Terrace Apartments, 48 units, veterans-focused, affordable rental complex, with 12 units specifically for veterans. All units will be affordable to households at or below the 60% AMI. The complex will include wraparound services on site. General Fund for Public Service had 7 applications, 4 were qualified for funding. These 4 met the metrics for the funding. The city's general fund allocation of program services is used to meet the 25% match HUD for the City of Salem requirement. The next steps. After City Council's vote tonight, staff will submit all plans and certifications for the HUD approval. Complete the environmental reviews and the subrecipient agreements for execution. The target of July 1 for the implementation of those agreements. Staff will conduct ongoing evaluations, file reviews, and program evaluations. Staff will continue to report to the council and public for any amendments needed and the CAPER for reporting end-of-year accomplishments.
Thank you, Ms. Otis.
Thank you.
And now we'll go to public comment, and then we'll come back to you for questions.
Thank you.
First up, we have, first of all, as a reminder, you have 3 minutes. Be sure and introduce yourself, state your name or your word for the record, and be sure that the green light's on before you start talking. First up is James Lutz. Oh, it was on, now it's on. There you go.
Oh, very good. Thank you. James Lutz, Ward 1. I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. I want to thank the councilors and the City of Salem and the Salem Housing Authority for their ongoing efforts to support the housing needs of our veterans, our families, and our vulnerable populations. I'm very excited to receive funding from the City of Salem for my veterans-focused affordable housing project. With our current and ongoing housing crisis in Oregon, we're excited to bring a new development for our veterans and our other low-income families, Applegate Terrace. Applegate Terrace is a veterans-focused affordable housing complex that will have on-site resident services. These affordable housing funds will help galvanize the construction of this facility and will be essential to the success of the project. Applegate is committed to providing supportive, affordable housing to our Central Valley while minimizing environmental impacts, strengthening communities, and maintaining community integrity. Our goal is to have an inclusive population unburdened by high rent with on-site access to supportive services. This is accomplished in part by working close with local communities and agencies, promoting quality housing standards and utilizing innovative construction concepts to attain a cost-effective complex. Our emphasis on veterans and partnering with local care providers allows Applegate to provide residents with on-site holistic care services, a little recreation, life-improving opportunities. Applegate teamed up with an Oregon nonprofit organization, CASA of Oregon, to apply for and chase funding for the project. CASA is a development consultant from Oregon that specializes in the housing needs of our Oregon residents and has been working to help Oregon residents for many years. We recently completed Applegate Landing in Lebanon, Oregon. This was our 48-unit prototype veterans-focused affordable housing complex that we completed in 2021. Not too easy during the COVID, but we were able to complete the project on time and on budget, actually. The Applegate project in Lebanon has close to a 50% occupancy rate of veterans and their families, which I hear is very good. I was wanted more, but 24 out of 48 kind of comes and goes a little bit, but that's pretty good for the little town of Lebanon. This prototype project has been a great success for our residents in our small town of Lebanon. Seeing the ever-increasing need to help our veterans and low-income families over the last several decades, I decided to use my construction experience to take the first steps to build a veterans housing project with resident services on site. A private prototype project that would house, train, and support the needs of our local veterans and our vulnerable populations. Applegate is teamed up with Crossroads Communities for our on-site resident services. Crossroads
I
is...
apologize, James, but your time expired.
Okay, call it.
I have a couple of questions for you,
Sure.
though, and others may as well. I apologize that we had to cut you off.
That's okay. This is a fast 3 minutes.
It goes by really fast, doesn't it? Can you give us an idea of your timeline?
So our estimate for timeline is we want to start in the spring of 2024, and we will start lease up in the early summer, late spring of 2025.
And if I recall correctly, this project's located over in West Salem, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Councilor Hoy.
I just want to say I believe we have a former customer at the restaurant who was so relieved to know there was a place to go, and he went to Lebanon and is quite happy there. So thank you for that
awesome.
work. The other thing was, what's your last paragraph?
Basically, the last paragraph was just wanting to help showcase the other benefits of this project in West Salem. And we were able to successfully negotiate the easement needed to start Marine Drive in West Salem. So we worked with some locals there, and in all the 25 or more years of everybody's hard work, and I came in, and luckily this person that had this property was a veteran, and we connected on that level. And so we were able to get this person to grant the easement that the city needed to start Marine Drive.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Kendra Alexander. Reminder, you have 3 minutes. If you're good. The green light's on. If you'd state your name and your address or your ward for the record, please.
Yeah, good evening. My name is Kendra Alexander. I am a resident of Ward 4, but I am here in my professional capacity as the Director of Operations of Marion Polk Food Share. The Food Share's office and warehouse is located in Ward 5, and our Meals on Wheels kitchen is at Center 50 Plus on the border of 1 and 5. Thank you for this opportunity to speak and for considering our grants for our Meals on Wheels program and our food purchase program as well. These funds will make a significant positive impact for thousands of Salem residents. Our Meals on Wheels program provides home-delivered meals to 750 seniors and disabled adults every day, and we do that with the help of 300 volunteer drivers who deliver these meals and provide a vital daily wellness check for these homebound neighbors. Every month, about 20,000 Salem residents receive food that the Food Share provides to our partner agencies. And currently, our partner agencies are seeing sometimes triple the amount of people that they have been seeing since the SNAP benefits, the expanded SNAP benefits were removed or timed out. The vast majority of our food is donated, but there are some gaps in the kind of food that gets donated. So the funds from the City of Salem helps to fill those gaps by allowing us to purchase foods like milk, produce, eggs, meat, rice, beans, masa flour, cereal, peanut butter, and many others. We purchase bulk food by the truckload as much as we possibly can to maximize the impact of every dollar that is provided for us. And we also know that housing and homelessness are key challenges in our community, and the Food Share believes that food assistance is an important resource in addressing these challenges. When families receive healthy food from a food pantry, they have more money to put towards rent, utilities, gas for their car to get to work, money for the laundromat, whatever it might be, health, medical bills. This improves their ability to stay in their homes and not lose their housing. The Food Share is grateful for every organization in town that provides services to our neighbors. without housing, and we're glad that we can provide food directly to those organizations like Arches, the Salvation Army, Union Gospel Mission, Church at the Park, HOAP, Home Youth, just to name a few. Food purchase funds from the city make it possible for us to provide food to these organizations along with thousands of other residents each month. Thank you again for the opportunity to speak tonight.
Thank you so much for your testimony, and thank you for the important partnership that we have with you, providing so many meals to so many different residents and programs here in the city. We literally couldn't do it without you, and we're so grateful for all that the Food Share does. But also, as the mayor, I would be remiss if I didn't say I am so impressed with your knowledge of our wards. Right up front, you knew 3 of them right off the bat, and you knew you're on the border between 2, and that was pretty impressive, and I appreciate it.
Little research, you know.
Are there any other questions? Thank you. All right.
Thank you.
Sarah Brennan.
Hello, Mayor Hoy and City Council members. Thank you. My name is Sarah Brennan. I'm the program manager for the Center for Hope and Safety. Our advocacy office is in Ward 1. I live in Ward 3 and drive through Ward 2 all the time. That's pretty much where I spend my time, is driving between the 2 wards. The Center for Hope and Safety works with the survivors of domestic and sexual violence. We have a 24-hour hotline, safe house shelter, and a number of other resources. For many years now, we've received this very important funding through the City of Salem, either through CDBG, home, or general funds, and that is vital to operating our hotline and shelter. I did want to just highlight our newest shelter program, Mosaic, which is a project turnkey that opened in Ward 5. I know, she's set a good example. And that, we were thrilled to be able to get that in mid-2021. And actually, we just served our 14,000th night of shelter there in just like 16 short months. So that has been incredible, and this kind of funding is exactly what we need to keep those operations going, as well as our good partners from Food Share. We really appreciate our weekly pickups from them. So I just want to say thank you for supporting this. I also want to say a huge thank you to Tiffany and her staff, who not only go through this very exciting grant process, but support us every throughout the year in providing these services and the reporting. So thank you so much for your support.
Thank you so much for your testimony, Sarah, and I'm going to give you a gold star for ward knowledge, because you were both very impressive. But I really want to thank the Center for Hope and Safety for all of your amazing work on behalf of survivors of domestic violence. It's critical work that it's really near and dear to my heart, so thank you.
Thank you.
Councilor Stapleton.
Just a quick question for you.
Yes.
You all are doing some amazing work downtown as well. You not only have Mosaic, but you are building downtown.
Yes.
And I drove by the other day through Ward 1.
Yes.
And I noticed that we're above ground now.
We are.
Could you give us a quick little update on that?
Yes. And thank you. And I will be remiss in saying that city money is also helping us put kitchenettes in at Mosaic, which is super exciting to help those motel rooms be more livable. But City of Salem funds also has helped us at Hope Plaza, which will be a 3-story mixed-use building, affordable housing on the top 2 floors, and business partners that will work with us and our survivors on the bottom floor. We broke ground finally in October last year. We are now pouring concrete, which apparently is a really exciting time of sit and wait and watch it dry. And then the electricians do some work, is what I've been told. But we hope to be operational by mid-2024, early fall 2024.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next up we have Mackenzie Hand.
Okay, here we are. Hello, everybody. Mackenzie Hand. I live, I believe, in the 8th Ward in West Salem. I'm here tonight, though, representing Grace House. We are a not-for-profit organization who provides transitional housing for women in need without dependents. Grace House has got to make great strides throughout the last few years, and with the city's help this year, We plan to expand, so more rooms for more women in need. And I'm just here to genuinely say thank you all so much. And we're very appreciative of the city's support. So thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Are there any questions? Thank you. And with that, we will go back to staff. It's our opportunity to ask questions. Are there any? Councilor Nordyke.
Thank you so much. And first of all, I want to echo my gratitude to all of the nonprofits and other organizations who took time out of their Monday evenings to come out and share and wait for their opportunity to speak. Thank you to all of you for all you do and for making Salem better. Now, on to my question. So I saw in the materials, let's see, this is the annual action plan, page 23 was my question. And page 23 mentioned $610,860. I believe that number was also identified in the slideshow from staff earlier. And that $610,860 is prior year resources that apparently went unspent. And I'm just wondering, number one, were those funds that were not spent? And also, considering what a huge need there is for these CDBG funds, what can we do to ensure that we are spending these funds that we receive to support affordable housing, to support our homeless neighbors? I'm just concerned when I see that there were so many resources left over, and I'm wondering if there's anything that we can do about that.
Thank you, Councilor Nordyke. The 610 less the 453 of the 2023 is the little over 200,000 that would be also allocated to the Applegate. So the 610 on the slideshow is the total funding that will go to the Applegate Landing over in West Salem. And yes, we were going through budget process during the time of putting the AAP together and trying to cobble, all leftover funds or unspent funds from past projects and being able to get those allocated appropriately during this process.
And it looks like Ms. Rutherford might have a comment as well to your question, Councilor.
Yes, I'd like to add to that if I could. So within the Community Development Block Grant Program, HUD has what they call a timeliness process, which is basically an accountability process so that we are getting money out the door. And this has become an increasing challenge over the last few years during COVID, because we had a lot of money granted to projects that were construction projects. And with inflation, with difficulty finding contractors, a lot of projects really slowed down or just no progress was made. Yaquina was one of those, where we've had CDBG funds allocated for several years. Finally, we were able to draw down and spend those funds. But this is something that we monitor on an annual basis, and something that over the last couple of cycles, we've been kind of changing our criteria to look more at projects that are truly ready to go and that aren't still actively trying to come up with all the necessary funding.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Other questions for staff? Councilor Gwen.
So, of course, I'm the freshman, so I'm not sure that I'm asking an appropriate question, but on the project Dev Northwest, I was just curious on the $300,000 for grant or for down payment assistance, how that works. How do you determine eligibility? How much, because there's 24 units. Just how does that work?
Thank you for your question. According to the application for the down payment assistance, it will be run through Dev Northwest. There is a representative in the room tonight, Amy. In the application, it said roughly $12,500 per application for assistance to the projects of being a first-time home buyer type service.
Thank you for that, and I think that is so very exciting. So.
And Councilor, if you'd like some more information, I'm happy to offer the opportunity for Amy to come up and add to that if she has anything that she'd like to add.
Sorry.
No pressure. You don't have to say yes.
I don't think I have anything to add.
Okay. No problem.
But what you said was exactly right.
Perfect. So for the people who couldn't hear, she said that what Ms. Otis said was exactly right. so she didn't have anything to add to that.
Okay, so now I have to ask another question.
Sure.
How do people go about applying for that? And is it too late?
No, it's not too late. The buildings and progression of the project are happening, and the project won't be available for funding until we get an agreement together with them. And then Dev Northwest is very active in the community and community partners and agencies, and will make announcements, and I'm sure make publications as well.
Councilor Gonzalez.
Councilor Gwynn, have a little information about it. They haven't broke ground yet. You know, it's going to be, this project's going to be unique to Salem, you know, where they're going to allow home ownership, possibly where the owners won't own the land. They'll just be buying the property, you know, so it's going to be brand new to Salem. And Dev Northwest has been operating in Salem for probably about 12 years, 10, 12 years, and they currently offer home buyer consultations, home buyer classes, and if you attend those programs, and then you qualify for some down payment assistance. So I think if there's anybody interested, they can reach out to Dev Northwest today to get enrolled, just be in the system, and maybe be considered for that project. But it's going to be unique to Salem, yeah.
Other questions?
If I can add to
Sure.
Councilor Gonzalez, so this is a community land trust project in the city of Salem. So that's correct with Councilor Gonzalez sharing about the home versus the property.
Other questions for staff? All right, I will close the public hearing. Councilor Stapleton.
Thank you. I move we adopt the 2023 Housing and Community Development Annual Action Plan and direct staff to submit the required forms to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development.
Second.
Fantastic.
Discussion?
Yeah. This is always exciting when they come forward with their, new applications for the year. I really appreciate all your work. I know you're working so hard on this, and it's a passion, I think, for you as well. And so thank you. It shows in the work that you produce. I personally am just so excited about Applegate coming back. Some of you may remember that I was really sad to see it go. And so to see it back is just really exciting. A really great addition to Ward 1 and to West Salem, and for the needs that our vets do have here in the city. And I know because you serve on the Mid-Willamette Valley Homeless Alliance as well, that services for our vets is an area that we're lacking in. And so this is going to be one of those really great moments for us. And Dev Northwest is having a project just down the street from me, and another good partner that has come along, really addressing so many of the needs, and just so many great people here tonight, as you heard from them. So I fully support this, and I hope my fellow councilors will as well.
Thank you, Councilor, and thank you for highlighting the Veterans Project that's coming back. This year, during the pit count, I was out on North Lancaster and chatting with a gentleman who had just become homeless, like maybe within a month prior to our conversation. And it was, I won't go into the detail on what led to his homelessness, but he was a vet. And so I was excited when he told me he was a veteran, because that was one of the questions I asked. And I told him about a lot of the resources that were available and new things were coming. And he had no idea. He had no idea. So I'm so excited that we're expanding that. We have the new Y housing downtown for veterans, and this one, and just a number of new exciting things for our veterans. So thank you for highlighting that. Other discussion? All right. If the recorder will call the roll.
Councillor Hoy.
Aye.
Councillor Nordyke.
Aye.
Councillor Varney.
Aye.
Councillor Stapleton.
Aye.
Councillor Nishioka.
Aye.
Councillor Phillips.
Aye.
Councillor Gwynn.
Aye.
Councillor Gonzalez.
Aye.
Mayor Hoy.
Aye. Motion passes. All right, on to item 4B, our next public hearing.
The Salem City Council will now conduct a public hearing concerning proposed code amendment to eliminate minimum parking requirements citywide. The criteria applicable to the proposed amendment is SRC 110.085B. Testimony must be directed toward the identified criteria or other criteria the person believes to apply to the decision. The hearing will be conducted with the staff presentation first, followed by Testimony from other interested persons. Neighborhood associations are limited to 5 minutes per association, and other individuals testifying are limited to 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. You know we're in for something complex when we get Eunice Kim, Julie Warnicki, and Lisa Anderson Ogilvy all coming to the microphones. This is going to be intense. Oh, hit your button. There you go.
Good evening. I'm Eunice Kim, the Long Range Planning Manager for the Community and Urban Development Department. I'm here tonight to present the staff report for Code Amendment Case CA 2301, a proposal to remove minimum parking requirements citywide. I'd like to enter the staff report and presentation into the record. So the code amendment before you tonight stems from new rules that passed at the state in 2022 called the Climate Friendly and Equitable Communities Rules. They were passed in 2022 and they mandate cities like Salem to change the way we do land use and transportation planning as well as parking reform. The rules really aim to reduce greenhouse gas emissions from transportation and promote equity. These are goals and priorities are in line with the work that we did in our Salem project, as well as the Climate Action Plan, as we're looking to reduce greenhouse gas emissions from transportation and promote equity. So the proposed code amendment responds to these rules by proposing to eliminate all minimum parking requirements citywide for all uses. And before I get into that, I'm going to provide a little context. But the proposed code amendment does not say that you cannot provide parking. Parking can still be provided on people's properties. It just takes the city out of mandating the minimum amount required on each property. So like many cities in Oregon and across the country, Salem regulates parking largely the minimum amount based on a specific uses. So for example, if you have an eating or drinking establishment or a restaurant, our requirement today is 1 space per 250 square feet of that building. So if you have like an 8,000 square foot fast food restaurant, you need 8 spaces. In recent years, however, we have been eliminating parking requirements for specific uses and in specific locations. This is largely because the city has been looking to promote infill and redevelopment, promote different types of housing, and really reduce barriers to development. So there are some uses where, regardless of where it's located, there's no parking requirement today, such as accessory dwelling units, middle housing, which is townhouses, duplexes, triplexes, etc. Late last year, we passed a code amendment here to add to that list, based again on these same state rules, that expanded the list to include like affordable housing and shelters. There are also specific locations in Salem where no parking is required by the city, regardless of the use, such as our downtown parking district, which was established back in '76, as well as within a half a mile of our 15-minute transit routes. This was again a code amendment that we did late last year to respond to these same state rules. There are also some locations and specific uses that we have targeted as a city to promote that type of development and removed parking requirements. So as an example, multifamily housing, if it's located in the greater downtown area, the Central Salem Development Program, parking is not required. And with the Our Salem project, we removed all minimum parking requirements for any uses within a quarter mile of Transit's core network, as long as there was multifamily housing. This was done to incentivize properties to add housing to their properties. So we've done a rough analysis to see what the impact of this proposed code amendment would be. And roughly 40% of the land within city limits today, we do not have a parking requirement for. The areas that you see in yellow on this map are the areas that are generally would be impacted. Much of these areas in West and South Salem are single-family residential areas. And in those single-family zones today, we only require parking for a single-family home. So we require 2 spaces. But if you do an ADU, a duplex, triplex, cottage cluster, those don't require any parking. So the change would really be to the single-family home. In other areas that would be impacted, they're largely employment areas. And again, the market would determine how much parking would be necessary in these areas if this proposed code amendment is adopted. We have taken a look back to see what the impact of our recent changes to parking have been. We've looked at multifamily housing in particular. We removed parking requirements for multifamily housing within the core network, Transit's core network, back in 2020. And since then, we've approved 15 multifamily projects. Of those 15, only 2 did not provide parking. The rest did provide parking. The amount was, again, based on the market and other considerations. So while this, again, code amendment would remove the requirement for parking, parking could still be provided. And this shows that majority of the multifamily projects are still providing parking. So this code amendment, again, allows the market and other considerations to determine the parking amounts that would be provided on each site by each use. It also aligns with the climate action plan that does have a specific strategy that asks the city to really prioritize removing parking minimums throughout the city, but particularly along the core network. And we did take this proposal to the Climate Action Plan Committee back in November, and they voted to recommend that. That vote, however, did come after a lengthy discussion about the other options that the state is providing the city in terms of mandated parking reforms. So I'm going to briefly go over a couple of those options. So the state provided the city 3 options. The first option is the code amendment before you tonight. If the city does eliminate all minimum parking requirements citywide, the city would not have to make any other parking reforms, but we could. If the city decided, hey, we like some of these other options, we want to tailor them to the city could go forward and do that, but would not be a requirement of the state. The other options have many other things that are required. I'm not going to walk through them all, but I'll highlight a couple of the examples. So if the city does not remove minimum parking requirements citywide, if it chooses either option 2 or option 3, we would have to price 10% of our on-street parking, essentially paid parking, by September 2025. So we've done a preliminary analysis to see what this looks like. And today, we charge for parking on less than 1% of our on-street parking spaces. It's largely in and around the downtown. It's the red areas you can't see very well on this map. We also have residential parking districts here in the city, but we do not charge enough for the residential parking permits to count towards the state requirement. So today, if you have a parking permit, it's $15 per month. A year, thank you. But if we wanted to count it, would have to be $15 a month. If we did make that increase to the parking permit cost, we would get close to 4% of our 10% requirement. If we were to charge for parking in the downtown area, we would get close to 5.5%. So while the city can move forward with paid parking on its own, going for just downtown would not be enough to meet this 10% requirement. Another one of the options is to pick 3 of these options you see on the screen. I'm not going to dive deep into all of them, but all of them except for the 5th one, which is a parking reduction, would require additional resources, staffing, or programs. We do not have existing staff or programs to implement these as they're currently required. Unbundling parking is a relatively new term in Salem, so I'm just going to explain it really quick. So essentially it means the city would have to require a building owner or a landlord to separate the cost of parking in a lease from the cost of the tenant space or the apartment. So someone who goes to rent an apartment would have to be able to rent that space, that unit, separately from the cost of parking. We don't have staff, we don't have the program today to really get into examining or enforcing private leases, so this would be something new to the city. There are some temporary rules that the state is considering that would roll back some of these parking requirements, so instead of picking 3, this would be a pick 2 situation, if those pass. So, of the 3 options, the proposed code amendment would be the easiest to implement within our existing staff, resources, capacity. It would also allow the city to continue forward with things like paid parking or other options, but really tailor them to the city instead of having to meet strict state requirements. So the code amendment makes several other changes. It revises our parking maximums in line with the new state rules, our bicycle parking requirements for multifamily in line with state rules, and then it makes it easier to install electric vehicle charging stations without triggering a bunch of pedestrian connections. So there's a few other things in the code amendment that I just wanted to touch on. We have received some public comments. Hopefully you saw those in your packet. There were 4 comments in support and 7 comments in opposition. So staff recommends advancing ordinance 423 to second reading. That concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Eunice. And we do have 3 people signed up, so we'll go to that, and then we'll go to those comments, and then we'll come back for our staff questions. First up, we have Marissa Thieve. Reminder, you have 3 minutes. Please introduce yourself with your ward or your address.
Hey, hi.
You're on. You're good.
Okay, good. Hello. My name's Marissa Tev.
Tev, I'm so sorry.
Tev, that's okay. It's French, it's a little tricky. I'm in Ward 1. So I'm just going to reiterate some of my written comments. So if you read those, feel free to zone out for 3 minutes. So I'm speaking today in support of Ordinance Bill number 4-23, and I believe abolishing parking mandates is right for Salem. Because it would complement the work, like Eunice was just highlighting, that council and staff have already begun on the Our Salem code changes and the climate action plan, which specifically calls out parking reform as low-hanging fruit. Salem has already removed parking minimums, again, as Eunice already pulled up, kind of redundant, within the quarter mile of core transit. So this ordinance would simply be an upward adjustment from there. My neighborhood, which is Grant, in particular, is nearly entirely within a quarter mile of transit, of core transit. So where I live, there would be no change, virtually. I believe a lot of folks in town, I read some of the testimony that was against this change, or against passing this ordinance, are concerned, and I believe that they're confused about what exactly this means. Hopefully they're watching and reading through the packet, and also confused about that this is a state law, so it is required, one of those options. I also believe that it would slowly yet cumulatively benefit Salem. And so as a professional, I'm a soil scientist, and I see the value in keeping our cities dense and walkable. We have amazingly fertile soils in Oregon and diverse soils in Oregon, and our urban growth boundaries have protected many acres of prime farmland from being scraped, compacted, and paved over. Let me remind you that soils are our largest terrestrial sink for carbon. As our population steadily increases, removing parking mandates would help us keep building up and not out, and let the market decide exactly how much parking we need. Thank you for this opportunity and for your work.
Thank you for your testimony. Are there any questions? Thank you so much for coming down. We appreciate it. Jason Greenwood.
Hi, my name is Jason Greenwood. Most of you actually probably know me. Thank you, Mayor Hoy and councilors, for listening to us. I'm here to, I own Divine Distillers and several properties in Salem, as well as live in Salem. I live in 3, and my businesses are all in 2. I'm here to support this, but before I go there, I want to tell the charities who are here, if you guys need anything, please come to me, look at our website, come to me or something. We've donated to a lot of people. Please come back to us. So having a property that is affected by this new rule, first of all, it is a state mandate thing we're trying to get to. So for all those who say, who are against it, who don't know that, please be aware that this is state mandated. But for businesses that do not fit our current environment, I believe that it is incredibly unfair that someone can build a large building in downtown Salem and not provide any parking, whereas a small business like myself who has property outside of that area is mandated parking. As a perfect example, a few years ago, I was asked to get rid of some landscaping in order to put in parking. That just seems wrong to me. For me, it is an incredible fairness thing. It is unfair to not require it in the city and require it outside. So for me, it is a personal thing. If you guys have known me, most of you have, fairness is a big, big, big thing for me. If you're requiring it for some people and not requiring it for others, that's wrong. So I'm fine either way. Either we start making it a requirement in downtown and requirement outside, or stop requiring it downtown and stop requiring it everywhere else. That's pretty much it. Thanks.
Thank you for your testimony. Are there any questions? All right, thank you. Next, we have Melody Atkinson.
Good evening. My name is Melody Atkinson. Thank you, Mayor Hoy and the council for hearing me tonight. I'm a multifamily property manager. I currently manage 2 properties in Ward 2, but I have worked all over the city, and I drive everywhere in the city, just driving my children around every day. So for all the wonderful things they need to do after school. I came to voice my concerns regarding parking changes from the aspect of being a property manager, specifically how it affects my residents negatively if there's not enough parking. So every apartment's fight is, when they come to me, is what is your parking like, and can I have guests over? So currently, my properties have sufficient parking for my residents and limited for my guests. But if that was to change, their quality of life would be degraded. People who live in apartments, condominiums, mixed-use buildings, and any other type of densely populated housing are an extremely diverse group, and it's difficult to state all their unmet needs without leaving out so many important facts. However, transportation is an area that all of them would gladly have me advocate for. Often there is a disconnect between those planning for a better life for future communities and the application or the hard reality of life for those affected by change. The consequences of policy is not usually immediate enough or fully understood by those who have never had the ability to voice those valid objections as to an ideally great idea can go so horribly wrong is really just a fact of life for those working shift work, working class. I didn't even know about this meeting because I'm too busy working. I don't get to read the paper till 3 days later. It's not that we don't want to be here, but we can't. It took me 3 people to pick up all 3 of my children from different areas to be here tonight. So those are things outside the bus lines. My new property is going to have a bus line, and we're so excited for that. We want to be able to come downtown on the bus. It's just not feasible when we're working till 11 o'clock at night, or we work till 2 a.m. The cost of housing is so expensive for most people. People who live in Salem are living in a manner that is most cost-effective for their lifestyle. As gas prices increase, we drive the smallest car for our household size. Eliminating parking in places where people live will degrade the livability and upward progress of all kinds of households. In Salem, it takes more than one income to afford most one-bedroom apartments, and that's at a 2.5 times the rent. So for us, that would be $13.35 a month at minimum wage. It's not happening. More than one income means more than one working person, which means more than one car. Most people with jobs and others to care for cannot balance not having a vehicle in the city. Whether it is people just starting out in their lives, a family or blended family with children, non-related persons, sometimes even with children who all room together for financial and strategic purposes, which is a growing trend, or a multi-generational household, all of these groups will be negatively and disproportionately impacted by limiting the ability to have an independent vehicle to manage their daily lives and get to work, downtown, all of those things.
I apologize, but your time has expired.
Thank you.
Does anybody have any questions? Thank you so much for your testimony. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, and now we are back to staff questions. So do we have any? Councilor Gonzalez.
General question is, what if we don't do any of these? What if we implement none? What happens?
I think you have to stand up. Oh, okay.
That's a good question. What was the question? What would happen if we didn't do anything? Oh.
Luckily, we have Phone a Friend available. And so we'll just take a quick pause. All right.
Thanks. So if we don't pick one of the options by the time that we need to pick them, we can't apply any parking minimums anyway.
I'm not
That's the
sure I followed
overrule.
that.
That's the, we would just be, it would be, yeah, it'd be a prohibition. We couldn't actually apply any parking minimums. So if we didn't choose 1, 2, or 3, and we did nothing, then we would just get overrided and there'd be no parking minimums anyway.
And the mechanism for that would be through the LCD?
Yes, correct.
Yeah. So it'd be a land use type of question where we would be mandated eventually in court. Thank you. Councilor Stapleton. Right, it would come back to us. In other words, this isn't something we can avoid. Councilor Stapleton.
Thank you. So we're talking about minimums, but we still have maximums, correct? And can you tell me, when you are dealing with developers that are coming to you with their plans, is it a push against the minimum, or is it a push against the maximum that the kind of the argument is coming in as far as wanting to push on either of those boundaries that we have? Can you talk to me about that?
Yeah, I would say we get more applications for adjustments to not meet the minimum today. We do get some for the maximum, but the vast majority, unless Lisa Anderson Ogilvie corrects me, is for adjustments to the minimum because they can't meet the minimum.
Lisa Anderson Ogilvie, your planning administrator. Lots of people ask about exceeding the maximum. And so we generally say we don't think you would meet the criteria for an adjustment. So how are you, or a variance, right? So how are you going to demonstrate that you have that need? It's not just, I want more parking. And so then generally they don't apply for it because they think about it and they look at the criteria and they're like, oh no, we don't think we can meet that criteria. So then they just build the maximum that they can and they don't ask to exceed it.
Okay, so if I understand you correctly, the maximum that we have in place right now is fitting the needs of our city.
And I guess it would be use specific. So for existing buildings where the use is changing a lot, you might have a use come in, maybe it was an office, and now it's coming in for a restaurant, and that'll be much higher parking, but they're constrained. And so in that situation, we get one for minimums. I think that's maybe what Mr. Greenwood was talking about, that kind of situation where his building has, changed tenants over time. But I would say for new development, where they're just building brand new, we see a lot of people wanting to exceed the maximum. They just, think they need more, whether it's for apartments or even just commercial businesses. And so they come and maybe they just show us their plan and we say, well, you're exceeding the maximum. Sometimes it's only a few spaces. Sometimes it's 20 or 30, and they say, okay, well, how do I get that approved? And then that's when we have a conversation about, well, it's a process. It's an application. Here's the criteria. Do you think, your situation that applies? And then generally they're like, oh, no, not really. I don't think I can do that. And so then they, remove it and put in landscaping or something.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And Ms. Kim, you mentioned, I think during your presentation that, and I have the benefit of having been on the Climate Action Implementation Committee, so this is the third or fourth time I've heard this conversation, so I have the benefit of a lot of previous conversations. And what I think I heard you say was that the option one, the one we are choosing or considering tonight, is the easiest of the options available. But my assessment, and just looking at it more from the elected perspective, is that the other options really weren't options for us. Like, we couldn't actually afford to implement them, even if we thought they were a good idea, because of the staff requirements involved in actually administering them. Even if we thought it was a good idea, that we don't have the budget to do so. Is that a fair assessment?
Correct. A lot of these other options, we would require either additional programs, staff to actually implement them.
A significant number of staff.
Correct.
Not just one staff, but a significant number of staff. Thank you. Councilor Nordyke.
Thank you so much. So I wanted to direct the staff's attention to some of the written testimony. One of my neighborhood associations is the Southwest Association of Neighbors. And the concern that they shared in their written testimony is something that I'd like to get the city staff's response to this evening. Their concern had to do with eliminating off-street parking minimums for large multifamily complexes. And the reason that this neighborhood association is bringing that up is because they know that some new multifamily housing is coming to their area. And their concerns is that if there's not enough parking for the new multifamily complex, that it's then going to spill over into their residential streets. And I'm just wondering, what kind of response would you offer to residents who are concerned about this form of development coming to their neighborhood?
Sure. So I would say that, first of all, that parking can still be provided by the development. So we do have parking maximums, but again, parking could be provided. It wouldn't take away that right, this proposed code amendment. Secondly, we do have a mechanism for residential parking districts. So you see those in and around the downtown and Capitol Mall where there are these parking concerns where, commuters or others are parking all in the neighborhoods. And so we do have a process for areas that are seeing a lot of that parking to have a parking permit where it's restricting the parking to the residents and guests.
I guess also I would just add that public streets are designed, if it's designed for on-street parking, it's available for anybody that lives in the neighborhood to park. So you don't have to just own the single-family house to be able to park on that street. So even though there might be overflow and it might change what people are used to in their neighborhood, there's nothing inherently wrong or like illegal about somebody that lives in an apartment parking on a public street near their apartment.
We tend to get very territorial about the spots in front of our houses when we live in single-family homes. At least that's my sense. Are there other questions? Councillor Hoy.
Thank you, and forgive me while I sort of wrap my brain around how to answer ask the question, rather. But I was a little taken aback by the response to Councillor Gonzalez's question, in that it doesn't really matter if we make a decision. It kind of sounded like that a little bit, and it'll come back around. Is there a benefit to making this decision now rather than letting it happen?
Well, I think what the state is saying, if you don't make a choice, then we're going to make the choice for you. And so if somebody were to come in, our zoning code, if we don't change it, we'll still say, this is the minimum parking you need. And then when they ask staff, the staff will have to say, well, our council chose not to follow state law, but there is a state law and now we have to follow it. And so then it's kind of confusing about if we would be giving direction to apply parking minimums to developments and then wait for people to take us to court, or if we're going to tell people what the state is requiring. So in some ways, I think it's better for the city to make its own decision and kind of control its own fate. So if the council decides that removing minimum parking is not the right way to go tonight and gives us direction to go back and look at other options, it will still be the council's choice versus just waiting until we kind of get to a penalty phase. Seems like not maybe the best way to approach it.
Okay, and one follow-up,
Sure.
if I may. It's not really a follow-up, it's a different question. But I'm concerned about bus lines as well. I think when I went to the what do you call it, when you open up the public forum for people to come and look at maps and you kind of are there to answer questions and explain. That happened at the library.
The open house.
Yeah, the open house, thank you. And I was there for that, and I was struck by the map of these areas that will be impacted by a decision like this, and that there wasn't adequate chariots routes to bring people into town from some of these areas. How on board is Chariots with this kind of thing, and how is it going to be able to grow together so that we don't end up with shortfalls? And I've brought this example up before, but I have an employee with disabilities who travels from South Salem to Lancaster, and it takes her 2.5 hours to get there by bus. Her shift is only 2 hours, and it takes her 2.5 hours to get home. Are we working on this? Because I don't see that maybe we're up to speed. No pun intended.
No, I appreciate that question. We are definitely working with Chariots, and they are working to constantly increase whether it's frequency or coverage, and understanding they have a new long-range plan for the first time for their transit service. And I think, yes, perhaps in an ideal world, the transit would all be there, the sidewalks, the bike lanes, everything would be there first. But the reality of the state rules is that the mandate for the parking reform, the deadline is earlier. So we are trying to work with transit and work on all the other things at the same time while this decision is before you.
And Ms. Kim or Ms. Anderson-Ogilvie, I don't recall which one of you mentioned a penalty phase, but that made my ears sort of perk up. If we were to do nothing tonight, if we were to reject this proposal and entered the penalty phase, what does that mean?
Well, I think that's my own term I made up, but I just was trying to explain that the way the state has set up the rules is you choose option 1, 2, or 3, and then the question was if you don't choose anything. Well, at some point, if we do nothing, then option 1 just applies to us, right? And so I was just saying that's the penalty that they've come up with. So sometimes when you don't comply with other state rules, there could be other mechanisms that the state has come up with to force a city to comply. And in this case, they're just saying if you don't choose a choice, we'll choose for you, and the choice is 1, no parking minimums.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Councilor Gwynn.
I guess my only concern is what's the rush? Why do we have to do it now? Because aren't there several cities and other entities that are filing a lawsuit about this? And so why can't we wait? I mean, what's the urgency for us to do this tonight?
Sure. So we do have a deadline on option 1. If the council decides to do option 2 or 3, we have requested to push out the deadline for establishing the new programs, hiring the staff, et cetera, that would be required for options 2 or 3. We've asked for an extension and we're granted that to the end of next year, I believe. But the deadline for option 1 is in June. Oh, and I should say, at any time, if for some reason the city decides to remove all minimum parking requirements, it's a year or 2 down the road, and it's a total disaster, the city can switch and say, you know what, we don't want to do option 1, we're going to do paid parking on 10% of our, parking spaces instead. We could implement that and reinstate minimum parking. So there is an ability later, if we want to switch to a different option.
Councilor Phillips.
Thank you. At the risk of being redundant, I agree, Mayor, with what you said earlier. The options 2 and 3 did not seem, practical or feasible when we had the breakout session with the Climate Action Implementation Group in November. It seems like they would be considerably more expensive, and we currently don't have anywhere near the staff needed to make them a reality. So they're more, to me, they came across as more theoretical and in no way feasible or practical. Am I missing anything? And I can't recall if we had specifics.
That was our analysis, yes.
Yeah. So do you have any sense of what kind of FTE additions we're looking at to be able to meet either options 2 or 3? Like a rough estimate.
We've done really preliminary analysis on a couple of the options. So unbundling would probably be 1 or 2 FTEs. The taxing on the parking lot would probably be roughly 2 FTEs. But if we actually went that route, we would want to do a much deeper dive into the actual cost.
Thank you. I mean, I think that helps. Just we had the work session last week where we discussed kind of FTEs and how tight our budget is going to be in just 1 year. So I think that this is the best solution that we have. I think there's a lot of potential upside to this in terms of planning for what is going to come most likely based on what the state has decided for us. And it's not just like they made a decision that's incorrect. I mean, I think everybody agrees we need more housing in the state of Oregon. I think that we've heard repeatedly that statewide, we're down 100,000 units compared to what we would have in an ideal state. So this just makes us have more flexibility, and it creates clear and objective standards moving forward for our developers. So I'm in favor of this. I think this is the best option that we have, and it's the only serious option of the 3 that are currently proposed.
Thank you, Councilor. And I would just as a gentle reminder that we're in the question and answer period, not deliberation. So any other questions for staff? Councilor Nishioka.
Thank you, Mayor Hoy. I want to go back to a statement that you just made in the sense that even if we vote in favor of this now, we can change our mind later implementing paid parking at a 10% rate. That's it, I guess.
Okay, sure. So the 10% was that under option 2 or 3, we would have to charge for parking on 10% of our parking spaces citywide. And yes, we could switch from 1 to 2 or 3.
Follow-up question,
Sure.
please. So, and you mentioned, you were giving us percentages of downtown, and downtown initially was about 4%, but that was just on street parking? That's not parking structures or anything else?
Right, it's street parking.
And Ms. Kim, does staff anticipate that if we were to go with some sort of paid parking system, does that just mean a permit? Does that mean meters all over town? What would that look like?
It doesn't say which way you have to go. It would have to be paid parking.
Paid parking
Yeah.
of our choosing. Thank you. Other questions for staff? All right, we will close the public hearing. And Councilor Stapleton.
Thank you. I move that we advance ordinance 4-23 to second reading for the purpose of amending the Unified Development Code to eliminate minimum off-street parking requirements citywide in response to the new state rules and advance to second reading.
Second.
Thank you. We've talked a lot tonight, haven't we? And I want to thank you for your presentation. It's always very helpful for the open house. That was really great to attend, and for all of the meetings that you've had individually with us, counselors, to help us really wrap our minds around what's happening here. I feel really confident moving forward with this option because I really do feel like it is the only option. And I really like to make my own decisions. I don't like people telling us what to do. And I think it really also sets the example, I think, for neighboring cities and cities across the state that we can do this and we can do it all together and really help meet the goals of our housing, hopefully increase the need, and therefore the folks using our public transportation systems are really elevating that form of transportation. And I think this is just going to be the easiest option, the most straightforward option, and the best option for our city.
Thank you, Councilor. One observation I had, especially the map that Ms. Kim put up regarding areas that won't be impacted because we've already implemented this in effect in those areas based on their proximity to the core network. We have entire wards almost that are already under this scheme. And so the other piece of this that we haven't spent a lot of time, except for Mr. Greenwood mentioned it, is it really is kind of a level, it's a level setting, for the entire city. It puts everybody under the same rules, which to me, there's something definitely positive to be said for that, where we've already eliminated those requirements in a lot of areas, and this just makes the rules the same for everybody. So that makes a lot of sense to me. And it turns out that things are still working just fine in those areas where we already did that. So, other comments? Ready to vote? If the recorder will please call the roll.
Counselor Nordyke.
Aye.
Counselor Varney.
Aye.
Counselor Stapleton.
Aye.
Counselor Nishioka.
Aye.
Counselor Phillips.
Aye.
Counselor Gwynn.
No.
Counselor Gonzalez.
Aye.
Counselor Hoy.
Nay.
Mayor Hoy.
Aye. Motion passes. All right. We have no special orders of business. So we're on to information reports, and we'll just go through them in order, like it's been our practice recently. Anything for item 6A? Item 6B. Item 6C. All right, we have no ordinances, no first readings, no second readings. Do we have anybody signed up under number 8? We have nobody signed up under number 8 for public comment. We're adjourned. Boom.